Welcome to the Gridiron Studs Show, sponsored by GridironStuds.com and the Gridiron Studs app. Well, I got a treat for you guys today. I am going to bring on perhaps the strongest. You know what? Let me stop saying perhaps. I'm bringing on the strongest 2025 recruit, perhaps maybe the strongest recruit I have ever covered that's ever been on Gridiron Studs. We're talking about a national powerlifting champion, an international powerlifting champion. Some of you guys perhaps have seen me some videos that I've made on him, both on Instagram and Twitter. But I'm happy to bring on today Keegan Garcia. He is an offensive lineman from San Antonio, Texas, and we're talking about 6'3", 305 pounds of just pure strength. And we're also talking about a guy that can move as well, plays rugby in the off season. So I'm going to have a full-scale talk with him coming up on the show today. So I'm going to just get into things that freshmen need to do. And it's good that I'm bringing Keegan on because he'd been on the Gridiron Studs app since 8th grade. And he's going into his 5th year on the app. He's been, if not one of the most diligent users of the app. He completely filled out his app back in 8th grade and has continued with updating it, keeping it updated with his latest videos, obviously with all of his lifts, which constantly, he keeps exceeding levels. So, the moment he breaks one record in a lift, he's on to the next. Just to give you guys an idea, this man has a 735-pound squat. It was a very good interview because it just takes you into the process that he goes through to both obtain those type of lifts, because obviously it's, yes, you got to have a certain amount of born talent, but there is a whole lot of discipline involved there. So he talks about a lot of that, the lifting, the schedule, the nutrition. On top of that, he has a 3.9 GPA. He's being looked at by some Ivy League schools. So it is a very good interview for parents of young players and young players, if you're on here as well, to listen to it. I know I preach to you guys about a lot of things, and maybe it goes in one ear and out the other, but here it is, one of your peers are going to come on here and talk about it because he's actually living it and has been doing so since 8th grade. So it's going to be really good to have him on and talk to him about his entire process, the recruiting, how he started playing football, how he got into weightlifting, how rugby became a part of this deal, and all of that. So really, really just looking forward to that. But as I said, I want to talk a little bit about what freshmen need to be doing, especially in today's game, because, being honest, I've always preached that freshmen need to be diligent in their preparation once they come in. But I know what it is. Not every freshman is thinking about college football. For a lot of guys, they really just start thinking about college football maybe 10th or 11th grade when they start playing varsity and it looks like they're good, or they're getting recruited by schools. You get that first letter and then you start thinking, oh, maybe I can play college football. And not until then did you really give it any thought. And so all of the things you probably should have been doing up to that point, you have not yet started to do that. So you're starting from behind. But we're in a new era now. Recruiting has definitely changed. Some of the stuff that's going on in recruiting, all of the changes that have been made, a transfer portal has certainly put a damper on high school football recruiting. There are less spots available. The schools are going after transfer portal players before they go digging into the high school ranks. And I talked to Keegan a little bit about that, but you really can't blame them because they want experience. All right. Every job out there wants experience. And when you've got a transfer portal now, there is the ability for these schools to get experienced players on the roster, and they're going to want to add those before they add high school players. Of course, your 5-star and 4-star players are going to always get recruited because there's just so much potential there. But not everyone is at that level coming out of high school. Sometimes you are a potential for a 5-star football player, but you're just not that right now in high school. You need to get onto a college campus and continue to develop because, some guys do get into college and continue to grow both physically and mentally and also experience in the game. Some guys pick the game up later. There's definitely stories out there of guys who started playing football in 11th or 12th grade And so they don't have as much experience. They gained it in college. They just needed that opportunity. So it's good to talk about that. And then with a transfer portal plus the early signing period, your freshman year starts to take on a little more importance. You've got to do the right things now once you enter into high school. So even though the game has gotten shorter because of the early signing period and the transfer portal, it's still a long-term game. This means you have to take certain steps to be in position to cash in when signing day comes around your senior year. Along those lines, here are some of the things that freshmen need to do, probably the most important things that freshmen need to do to put themselves in good position at the end. First thing is build relationships with coaches. It's okay to initiate contact with college coaches and build relationships with them. Attend college football games, visit campuses. If you have college football programs in your immediate area, communicate with coaches via email, phone calls, social media. You will start getting that kind of literature. If you're playing as a freshman, you will get that. They will at least invite you to camps and to games. If you have, again, a local college that's in your area that's playing games, they'll do that. Doesn't mean it's an offer yet or anything like that, but they will start that process. And when you get those things, express genuine interest in the programs and inquire about the recruiting process. Coaches often appreciate proactive athletes who take the initiative to reach out. It shows that it means something to you. You never want to blow off a coach. Yeah, it can be time consuming, but the coach you blow off today could be the coach that ends up at the school that you really want to go to tomorrow. There's so much movement in the coaching ranks that you don't want to end up being in a situation where you blow a guy off. And now, a coach they're supposed to be professional, but they're also human too, and they will remember. The next thing is to stay active on social media. There's some guys out there that don't have social media. You just don't want to get all caught up and wrapped up in that. I understand that part of it. You want to be focused on your academics and your athletic career. However, the truth is that you need social media. It's very much about getting yourself out there. You'd like to think the coaches will just come and find you anywhere, and in some cases they will, but you don't want to leave that to chance. You got to maintain a positive and professional presence on the social media platforms. College coaches may review your social media profile to gauge your character, so you got to be careful about what you post on there. Avoid controversial and inappropriate posts that might, negatively impact your recruitment opportunities. You got to use the social media platforms to share your highlights, your accomplishments, and updates on your football-related activities, especially if you're a guy that just is not really active on social media. You can use your platform strictly for that. It's best, though, for you guys to create a separate account on Twitter for your recruiting information. And of course, it's ultra important that you create an account on the Gridiron Studs app, because that's the whole reason that I created it. It really was based on Twitter and me seeing guys bringing together their personal life with their recruiting life. And sometimes it's just not the best mix. So I created a Gridiron Studs app strictly for that. You have something devoted to your football career, your highlights, your lifts, your track times, if you run track, your stats, recruiting updates, pictures, everything having to do with your recruiting, your high school football, all that, all in one spot. And so it is definitely in your best interest to download the Gridiron Studs app, create a profile. It's definitely a place where you can get more exposure and have college coaches there come and see what's going on in your football world. Either way, though, if you are on Twitter, they will go and find you. They will find you there. So you've got to be aware of what you post on there. Another thing, though, is seek guidance from your high school counselors and your coaches. Engage with your high school counselors and the coaches who have experience in college recruitment. They've been through class after class after class. They can provide valuable insights. They can assist with your academic planning, which is very crucial, and help navigate you through the recruiting process because, it can get overwhelming at times. You do want to attend college recruitment seminars or workshops to gather information on eligibility requirements. A lot of guys drop the ball there. You want to know the NCAA rules. as well as the timelines, because everything's operating on a timeline when it comes to the college football recruiting. You may think that you don't have the time or that these things are boring. I get it. I understand it. I've been a teenager before. You do need to change your mindset. When these things pay off down the road, you will be very, very glad that you did them. The next thing is obvious, but some guys slack off on it, and that is stay physically fit and take care of your health. You want to maintain a healthy lifestyle, including regular exercise. You want to have the proper nutrition. You're going to hear Keegan Garcia talk about this. Another thing he talks about a lot is sufficient rest. Focus on your strength and conditioning to improve your physical abilities. What you do in that weight room does definitely go and translate on the field when you're playing football. You can stay injury free by practicing proper training techniques and seeking appropriate medical attention when needed. Don't blow off things that you know are injuries, because they tend to just get larger when you're a football player. So take care of those injuries pretty fast, get treatment, get those things taken care of. The focus as a high school football player is on lifting and running, but don't forget your diet, guys. Realize that what you eat plays a bigger role in how you look and how you perform than just the lifting of the weights. A great combination of both will give you the edge over many, many other guys. And then finally, you want to remain persistent as well as resilient. The recruiting process can be challenging. It may involve setbacks, rejections, and rejection is very tough to handle when you're a teenager. So it's essential to remain persistent, motivated, and resilient through the entire journey. Stay committed to your personal growth. Continue to work hard. Seize every opportunity to showcase your skills and your character to the college recruiters, because while they're constantly recruiting, you should be constantly trying to get recruited. Just like your journey to become a good football player, the journey towards getting recruited will have sticking points. There'll be peaks and valleys, just like during your season. You'll have good games and you'll have bad games. You will have another game unless, of course, you're in that last game. But there is another game that you've got to prepare yourself for. So you just deal with the good and the bad, but you just keep going. The journey towards getting recruited will indeed have peaks and valleys. So the same way you didn't quit lifting weights when you failed at a bench press is the same way you're going to keep pushing when you don't get what you want initially in your recruiting. The only failure in this thing is just not trying. So those are some simple things that you guys should pay attention to, should get involved in, and you want to do those things early. If nothing else, you just have more practice with it by the time your crucial junior year rolls around. You don't want to be now getting into those things because, it could be an issue for you. You'll be green, and the worst thing is to be green. You at least want to be experienced. So if you are a parent who has aspirations for your kid being recruited and getting a college football scholarship, you want to start impressing these things that I talked about on them right now. You even maybe want to get them to look at these videos. I know it's tough for them to sit down and listen to someone speaking. If you are doing this on your own as a freshman or even as a sophomore, kudos to you. You're on the right track. But enough from me, guys. I want to go ahead now and bring on my guest, Keegan Garcia, who is going to talk, like I said, a whole bunch about his journey, talk about his strength and conditioning, and just how he got so strong, and just what he has gone through in his high school football career and how he prepares and continues to prepare in each and every day. So it's going to be very good to hear what he has to say. My next guest, I am sure, is stronger than you, anyone who's listening out there. This is the strongest recruit, I would have to say, in the class of 2025. Who else do you know has a squad? And, Keegan Garcia joins me, by the way, East Central High School in Texas. And I know you're constantly lifting, so these numbers change all the time. So as I give these off afterwards, you can correct me if I'm wrong on any of these. All right. But check these out, folks. 735-pound squat, 445-pound bench, 670-pound deadlift, 300-pound clean. Did I get all of those right?
Yes, you did. That's 100% right there.
Yeah. Why are you this strong, Keegan?
Man, I've been in the weight room since 10 years old. My pops is a world powerlifting coach. So since a young age, I've just been in it, doing AAU, doing different federations and leagues, and then hit middle school, and then you're in the weight room constantly, and then just stayed in the weight room, training at my house every day. So just over time, the hours add up, and it just becomes the result.
Well, I want to dig in. I want to dig into that, but just some, particulars for our recruiting folks out there. 6'3", 305 pounds. Um, do you play all across the offensive line? Where do you prefer? What do you like there? Where do you see yourself at the next level?
I see myself at the next level, definitely playing interior, probably center.
Mm-hmm.
I started at left tackle. I started at left tackle when I was at Cornerstone, and then when I transferred to East Central, I started week one at guard at center, and then I changed over to left guard. So I played exterior, interior. I've played a little bit of right tackle at East Central too, and right guard. So I've played like every position that's on the line at East Central, and I definitely like at the high school level guard. I get to pull a little bit more, and I get to look like I'm the star player. But definitely at the next level, I see myself snapping the ball to the quarterback.
Gotcha. Like going after those linebackers every now and then, huh?
Sir.
All right, I'm going back to something that you said. It's not normal. It's not the norm for a youngster at the age of 10 to start lifting weights. I know there's an old tale out there about starting lifting so soon. So tell me, at 10 years old, what were you doing weightlifting wise? Was it full on straight into lifting, or tell me how that started out?
So how it started out was, my pops he asked me if we're getting down to the base. He asked me if I want to lift. I was like, yeah, I'll give it an opportunity. So I see they're doing this training in the summer for the powerlifting team because they train year round, and they had this meet that's in July, and it was the AAU, championship. So I was like, okay, well let's give it a shot. So um, I went in that the first like week of June, and I just started just doing bench first day, getting my technique down, and then making sure no injuries happened. And then next day we did deadlifts. That's where I found out. That's where I found my best lifts was that day because I can pull a house, and it took me to a new level. That's when I found out really that lifting is what I like to do, and that's what will separate me from others because you can have a guy my size and move quick like me, but if he's not as good as me in the weight room, that's what it shows. Weight room does show, and so that summer I was just in there. 4 days on, 3 days off. Because at a young age, my pops didn't want to stress me out, stress the body out too much. So I was doing back, shoulders, and then had the meet, and then boom, this one it started to come up more, and then I had like around 11 years old, I was in the weight room like probably once or twice a week, and then when I was 12, I started middle school doing middle school workouts and then training after school as well. So I had practice in the morning, and then during the period we had a weight room, and then after school I was getting more hours in the lab. So that's really what separated me and got me better.
Wow, so there's AAU weightlifting competitions for 10-year-olds.
Yes, I think for lifting, you could probably, I think it's like around 8 years old or something like that. I would have
Wow.
to look into it, but I know my sister, she does powerlifting, and she competed at 8 years old, I think, and she got records too.
So talk to me about siblings. Just a sister? You have brothers? Where do you shake out in the whole family tree?
Yeah, so I'm the oldest. I have one younger sister. That we both take after my father, and we love lifting. And he's done a meet with me. I've done meets with her, so it's pretty
Hmm.
exciting.
Well, that is certainly interesting. I didn't even know they had stuff like that at that age because, like I said, it's not typical. Most kids wait till they're about to enter high school, or a lot of recruits enter into high school having never really lifted weights. Maybe they've done push-ups or some lunges with body weight, but by the time you hit that age, you were a full blown lifter. How big were you entering into ninth grade?
Entering into ninth grade, I believe uh, I was 270, um, and I was like right around 6 foot, maybe 6'1". But I was around 270, and I was around 35% body fat.
Definitely impressive. So, talk to me about your football journey. You started lifting weights at 10, but when did you start playing football?
So, like I said earlier, I started weights at 10, but 6 years prior to that is when I took my first snap. So I was 4 years old. I was
You
at a
guys don't play around in Texas at
oh
all. 4 years old. What's your helmet should be your size at age 4.
oh yeah, no, that's just how it is, man. Down here in Texas, I know I met a couple people that started at 4 and 5, and I was at a soccer match, and I was playing soccer, and one of these close buddy of mine now, his uncle was there, and he's like, "You should come try football." He knew my dad, and, that's when my dad was like, "All right, let's give it a try," and I was like, "Let's try it," and then boom, we started since
That
then.
was the end of soccer, huh?
Yeah, yeah, that was the end of soccer.
That's usually how those things end up going. So, was this tackle football at age 4?
So I did flag football around right as I turned 4, and then right as I was about to turn 5, I got into tackle football.
So take me on your journey now. Just for you folks out there, Keegan's been a starter at the high school level since eighth grade. And for those of you who probably don't understand what I mean by that, he went to a private school. So it was K through 12. Was that basically it? The school that you went to?
Yes, sir. It was K through 12.
All right. So when you're in that situation, you could have a middle schooler or a junior high, depending on where you are in the country, play varsity football. We've seen that down here in South Florida. And matter of fact, a gentleman by the name of Sony Michelle, who recently retired as a running back that went to Georgia, most notably played for the New England Patriots, was 1,000-yard rusher down here. I think it's seventh grade, and came pretty close to having the all-time high school rushing record. Some dude named Derrick Henry prevented him from doing that, 10,000 yards rushing in high school. So you started off there, but at what point did you say, look, I want to play college football? I would like to play college football. Was it eighth grade or sometime after that?
So, um, actually, when I started playing football, my pops and I made a deal. When I started playing football, was to whatever I did to give it my hardest and my best, and as long I could do whatever I wanted as long as it paid for my college. So I had a dream since I was young to do what my pops did. My dad had D1 offers. He played professionally. So I had that dream to, be like him and follow in his footsteps. And then as I grew older, my, my knowledge of the game grew. And I hit middle school, and I was playing with a couple of my friends now that have D1 offers that are 4 and 5 stars. That's when I was like, I can do this. And around eighth grade, that's really when I wanted to start actually going to find my purpose, and
Mhm.
I really figured out that I could do this, and that's what I wanted to do. Yeah, it was around the eighth grade. You know, being a starter on varsity, it took a lot of maturity and growth because I'm out there, playing against 18-year-olds, and I was,
Mhm.
14 years old. So um, it really that year really made me grow physically and mentally, emotionally, and it helped me realize that I just had to go all in.
I would imagine, a lot of the guys you played against though didn't realize you were an eighth grader. You're probably a pretty big guy, as you told me. Your dimensions coming into ninth grade, so you probably looked like a guy that was a sophomore or junior in high school. So, but inside of that big body was, I guess, a 13, 14 year old.
Yes, yeah, I've always been told that I was a big boy, and had a couple friends of mine that are bigger than me. I have one of my best friends. He's 6'6" and
Mm.
he's 340. But when we were at the same school, um, I started over him. But it was that's how I can prove that size matters. But in the sense, if you can show that you're the big dog, that you'll get the attention and stuff like that. And going against somebody his size made me better. I remember we were playing against we are gonna go against Manor. I think it was week 2 or week 3 when I was at Cornerstone, and they had a 4-star um, defensive tackle committed to Texas Tech. Um, he was about 330 at the time, maybe 320. He's like 6'2", and he's
Mhm.
a big boy. So I knew I had to get prepared for him because I didn't want to be embarrassed on Friday night. So
Of course.
having him really helped me a lot.
So you started off at Cornerstone, and at some point, because now you're at East Central, you had to leave. I'm guessing this was after your sophomore year. What led to that decision?
So man, we would do a lot of heavy duty stuff, and it took a toll on my body. Man, we were doing Navy SEAL workouts, and we were in morning practice to period practice to after school practice. So it felt like 3 days, and we're doing full body workouts. And um, I would say it would get you better in the sense if you rested, and we did it 5 days on. So
Mm.
it was very tolling on my body, and my body was just getting exhausted. I just went through a lot of stress that year with recruiting, and a lot of stuff happened at the school. And my pops is a teacher and coach,
Mm.
so we were deciding, what would be the best option for us to keep on, because it could have led to furthermore injury, and possibly could have made me not ever play sports again. So
Right.
I was starting to overload my body. Then I was starting to, I would have to miss like track practice and like um, powerlifting practice when they're in season for an off season. And training's great and all, but I really felt an overload on my body.
Right.
So my pops and he's always put my best interests at heart. So he knew that, he's seen it happen. Guys overtrain and they get hurt, and it could be the final straw. So my pops wanted to protect me, and the Lord really spoke to us, and everything happens for a reason. So it felt like it was our time to go, and sure enough, we moved to East Central that summer. We were thinking about it a little bit in the spring. I went through boot camp at Cornerstone. We were doing,
Hmm.
like I said, those like Navy SEAL workouts and full
Hmm.
body workouts. And that first day of summer, I went to the Cornerstone workout for strength and conditioning. The second day, I had the conversation with them, like, I don't think this is gonna work out. And that's when rugby was popping for me, and I was like, all right, now is like a good time to focus on rugby. And um, my dad just told him, he's like, if Keegan's gonna, decide this, that we're gonna head out. And so we decided that. And then that Wednesday, talked to Coach Hubbard, my head coach at East Central, and he said, "Yep, come over." And my dad had the
Of
job
course
for
he did.
Wednesday there. We're at workouts with East Central, so it felt like you hear about the stories in the NFL, like how guys just transfer and they're already practicing
Mm.
with the team like that. So it felt like that. Um, so that's how
From
that.
one day to the next.
Yep.
Understandable. So I'm, a blow for Cornerstone, obviously. Let's get into the recruiting talk because that's the big reason that you're here. You are one of the prominent members on the Gridiron Studs app. You're a guy that's been there, I think, from eighth grade, like way from the beginning. You've been on there for quite some time. You caught my eye very early. Obviously because of the weightlifting, the kind of strength that you showed, but also the diligence you had in not only just creating the profile but keeping it updated. And it's the major thing that I try to get across to high school football players that want to play college. I know how it is when you're in high school. You kind of like you're chill, but you showed a little bit more diligence and maturity in that I'm going to take the recruiting thing into my own hands. A lot of kids try to leave it to their parents, and it would be easy for you to do that because your dad is involved. And a lot of parents come and fill out the recruiting information and keep it updated for their kids. But you've taken this by the hand. So talk to me about your recruiting journey. Who's the first school to show interest? What's your dream school? What are you looking for at this point going into your final year of high school?
So to overview all that, my first school that ever talked to me was A&M Kingsville. Um,
Mm-hmm.
my pops was talking to me going into my freshman year, and he talked to a couple of his old coaches that he coached with, and um, they were just telling him like, yeah, we're gonna keep an eye on him. So my pops reached out for me, and on that part, and that's like when I knew I was like, man, yeah, I have a good shot. Um, I go through that freshman season, and then Kansas comes to the school, pull me out of class. They talked to the head coach at the time, John Bachman, and he's like, "Yeah, Keegan, we see great things in you. We see you going playing for us at the next level. Keep on doing things. We'll be touched in the spring." Talked to Navy. After that, talked to a couple Ivy League schools. OSU came down, got to talk to them, and then um, that was that freshman year. Then sophomore year, more schools came. And then just talked to a couple more, and then spring came, and Navy came back, started talking to them, and then when I moved, really only two schools really kind of stayed, keeping their eye on me. That was Ivy League schools, and so then when I moved to East Central, I started to, I just played ball. I did what I do, and started to get more coaches' attention. Started texting me. Brown was the first school to like come see me at East Central, and I got in contact with Columbia, and then I started talking to like UTEP, and then UTRGV, and then sure enough, UTEP and Brown invite me to their spring game. It's the same day, so I'm here. I'm having to choose, and at the time, I was like, someone just told me to go to UTEP, so I went to UTEP. Had an amazing experience there in the Sun City, and their coach Stanchek was just talking to me. He's like, "Hey man, just I like what you're doing." He's like, "Just come to camp. We'll see how it goes." Went to camp. Sure enough, a couple hours, he gave me a preferred walk-on offer. Just waiting for a scholarship. It's just the recruiting process how it goes. So I was like, "All right, sweet." UTRGV is still texting me, and then um, a couple games during football season last year for recruitment. So um, on that part, it all started just with, me getting that hopes of like just playing at the next level, and then just kicked in that off season. One school led to another, talking to me, and then another, and then another, and then
Yeah,
transferred.
that's kind of how it goes. It starts that way, one school and like compound interest almost in the bank. What did you do this? What was this summer like? What were your summers like? Did you hit a bunch of camps? What do you do summertime?
So summertime, that's when I usually put in overdrive. So man, I'm there at strength and conditioning. The days that I have camps, I recover. And that's one thing that you got to keep up with as an athlete is just recovery as well. That's
Mhm.
everything matters, and everything's about everything. You do the little things right, you do everything right. So I focused on the recovery, and then I'd go to a camp. Sure enough, I made sure I'd stretch, do my dorsiflexion, all that, things that make me stand out. And then when I get to the camp, we're getting going. I'm making sure I'm leading the group, to show that I'm willing to lead others. Pops always told me, and I'll tell you is, um, the difference between like a dog and a wolf is, a wolf leads the pack. So
Mhm.
that's what I like to refer to myself as a wolf. I'm not just the dog. I'll do more than what needs to be done. And so them camps, just do the drills, listen to what coach is saying. They have valuable information that'll help you with your season and get you to the next level. So this year I went to SFA first camp. Then I went to UTEP. Oh, then I went to Texas State. Then I went to UTEP, and I felt like each camp I took something away to help me better myself. So,
Hmm.
SFA, that was a shot to get a scholarship offer, and then it helped me critique a little things to help me for Texas State. And been to Texas State before, and I like their coach there. Call him Coach Shu. He's a great coach. He helped me really like understand the game more. So I went there, not necessarily to get an offer. That was great. That would be great, but I went to polish up. So I knew for
Hmm.
UTEP that I'd be ready and get an offer. And then
Sure.
went to UTEP a couple of days later, and then sure enough, it happened. So um, and then I went on, had some family vacation. But while I was vacation, I was still training. I was still doing core. I was still sprinting, doing those things that really make me different. And then came back, and then we went to New York, to Columbia, and found some valuable information there. And
Yeah. How did you like Columbia, being a Texas guy?
man, New York, ooh, that concrete jungle it's crazy. It is huge. I
Yeah.
liked it. I liked it a lot. Uh, the stadium felt like East Central, especially going from private school to East Central. Like I've, it's just crazy, man. 6A ball down here is like it's just like Cornerstone, one of the best stadiums in the state. And you go to East
Hmm.
Central, it's one of the best stadiums in the state as well. I get that feeling of community and family there, so I got that feeling.
Yeah, I hear you saying stadiums. Down here in South Florida, it's more like parks. There'll be bleachers, but I know in Texas, man, it's a whole stadium deal. And some of these colleges you go to, maybe their stadium isn't as impressive as some of the ones you've played in high school when it comes to Texas. Is that case for some of the places?
Yes, yeah. So, man, I've talked to a couple other schools that showed me like do virtual junior days. They show you the stadium. I'm like, man, that's a nice stadium. It look like a little high school, down here. But
Yeah,
ain't nothing wrong with that. It's just where home feels. And
sure.
you asked me earlier about like where like with the recruiting and stuff like that, where I was thinking about. Right now, I'm thinking about either UTEP or UIW for football because I went to the UIW camp, did good there, and I'm just
Mhm.
waiting for the next move for them. So um, I went to, like I said, went to UTEP, and it felt like Columbia. It's having my experience at Cornerstone, where the whole city is behind you because you're scattered all around.
Right.
That feeling of having true friends and stuff like that means a lot to me. And then when I went to East Central, people were down in it, and then
Hmm.
the community was just behind me, and it showed me that no matter where you're at, is you can still shine. East Central's on the southeast side of San Antonio. Everybody thinks
Hmm.
that's poverty or there's bad people over there, but I see more good in these people here at East Central than I've seen at a couple private schools.
Yeah,
So
so it should be pointed out though that this is in San Antonio, Texas, for those who, are from outside of Texas or don't really understand. That's the city that you're actually in. I've got this deep question for you. You're 6'3", you're 305 pounds, you move well. We'll get into some of the other sports that you play. You are the strongest recruit, has to be in the class of 2025. Why do you think there haven't been more D1 offers coming forth? I mean, you fit the dimensions, you have the strength. Oh, by the way, you've got a GPA hovering around 4.0, correct?
yes, sir.
What would you say is behind that? You have a theory on it? Is it something you think about? What are your thoughts there?
So my thoughts there is, you know, sometimes it's who you know, how you know them. Most cases now it's not. Um, there's a couple things, but the first thing I'll say coming off my head is the transfer portal is a great thing, but at the same time, it can mess somebody up a little bit because you know I'm around the same size of these guys, but they got
Mhm.
college experience. So
Right.
somebody that's the same but doesn't have that experience, or somebody that has that experience, and I know the answer to that question. I would take college experience. I want
Mhm.
the best. So the next thing is My size is height wise is necessarily specifically good for interior. Now, when you're
Mm,
like 6'4", 6'5", not only you can play interior, but you can play exterior, and that's really what separates.
sure.
I mean, I have a good wingspan, but I have the same wingspan of somebody that's 6'6". But if you have a guy that's 6'6", you're gonna probably want him over the guy that's 6'3". So
Yeah, I speak on this all the time. Recruiting is a beauty contest. It is about dimensions. I know coaches sit down in those recruiting meetings before they send guys out on the road, and that is something that is discussed. This is what we need at this position. This is ideal. This is what we're looking for, and they send the coaches out to find that. And only after they run into a situation where they either don't find that in a recruiting area, or they realize that they are not going to be the ones to get those players. Will they now turn to maybe someone else who's a better performer, player, et cetera, et cetera? Um, and recruiting is a big part of how guys both get jobs and also lose jobs. You could be holding a pretty decent record as a college football coach, but if your recruiting is not at a certain level, the fans make noise. And let's face it, administration listens to fans because they think that the social media crowd are the ones that are coming to games, and that I found out to not always be so true. The loud crowd on Twitter really just remain on Twitter by and large. They don't attend games, and 9 times out of 10, the people who attend games are the ones who don't really have much to say online. But they're loud, and so you think that's what it is. I'm certainly have watched you play. I've watched you grow and mature, and certainly think you are worthy of that. And, what are your thoughts now going into your senior year? That's kind of, and this was kind of how, my high school career went. I didn't have much of a junior year. And I knew the pressure kind of that I was facing going into my senior year. Like, I didn't even have interest. You at least had interest. I didn't have any interest going, God willing, I went crazy my senior year and got Division I offer. But talk to me, talk to people that might be listening to this. There are a lot of players and parents of players who are in this position right now, maybe feeling a little bit of desperation going into this final high school season, and really wanting to get a scholarship but don't have really anything in their hand right now. What are you feeling, and how are you dealing with it?
So the way I feel about it is, man, the recruiting process is, besides going through everything I went through at Cornerstone to help me build up and mentally prepare and be ready, is the recruiting process. I've been through a couple really hard things through my life, and the recruiting process is, in my opinion, the second most hardest thing I've had to deal with, and
Mm,
that's only 4 years. I'm 18 years old, so four
sure.
years that of other stuff, but it's just a lot. So to the families that are in this situation is, to get your 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 next to the next level, and that's in the little things. So that first started off with just recruiting. So like I said earlier, I've been on the app since I was young. So um, usually, obviously, people watching this right now, they're probably already on Gridiron, but if they're not,
Mm,
that's one of the next things they need to do, because it shows you it shows you to others, and it shows you where you need to be at. That's it's all about competition. You see one guy, oh, he's your same size, same speed. Oh, he has a 205 bench press, and you're at 195. Well, now you got to step it up. So it doesn't only show coaches what you can do, but it shows you what others are doing to show you where you need to be at. So the first thing is definitely get on a recruiting app, preferably Gridiron. That's in my
mm,
opinion the best.
mm,
And the next thing is focusing more on the little things, keeping your grades up, like making sure you maintain at least a 3.8 GPA. And then going to recovery, stretching, getting faster, and when you can, and taking the weight room serious, and then just practicing, making sure you don't get hurt. And when it comes to game day, making sure you're not on somebody's highlight tape. So if you focus on your job, what you do that every play, it'll show, and then that will just the film will take care of itself. And just after that, after when it comes to season, it'll be around, for some states, December, January, whenever it is. That's when you just send that film out. You write an email. You review it. You add your highlight. You add your GPA, your height and weight, all your numbers, why you like that university. Send that out. You get a response, great. If not, it's all right. They'll see it. They got a lot of emails too. You do that to one coach, another coach, and eventually words start happening. My coaches at
Mhm.
my school right now knew I wasn't getting a lot of attention. Um, they talked to a couple of coaches that they knew. Now I'm chattering. Now I had it started with the Division 3 school looking at me, and then another Division 3, and then out of nowhere, like 62 coaches texting me, and then sure enough, uh, the recruiters at UTEP and stuff found me. So it's just
Mhm.
getting your name there is the biggest part.
Yeah, you mentioned a very important part of the Gridiron Studs app that I don't think many guys really understand or take from it. Getting on there, obviously, you're doing it because you want the coaches to see you, and then there's some fans on there that would see you. But the other part is that when you go on there, you do have the opportunity to see all of the other people that are around you, both people that are locally that you may be, in Texas or Ohio, California, Georgia, wherever you're at, but you can see guys all across the country and then kind of compare yourself. It is always good to see your competition. Obviously, I'm down here in South Florida, and every year I can see in the summertime, guys will come down from other areas, whether it be Indiana or some of these, Iowa, Minnesota, places where football is not as big as it is in South Florida or Texas or California or something like that. And it's one of the greatest experiences for them because they don't know what they're up against if they stay in those areas. So when they come down here, they get a chance to see and they're like, oh, wow, this is actually who I am going up against to get these scholarships. And if you don't have the opportunity to leave your local area, you can use the Gridiron Studs app to go around and look at some of the other guys on there, and you will see kind of what you're up against. And I think guys should really, really use that. Now, you also mentioned about keeping your GPA up to at least a 3.8. You can't sneeze at that. That's obviously very impressive. With the weightlifting, the rugby, as you've mentioned, your football training, and everything that goes into that, practices, games, etc. How do you find the time to balance everything out and still have an Ivy League worthy GPA? Tell folks how they can get that done.
So, obviously, as it sounds, is you have to have time management. You have to have time
Mm,
skills. So, man, to be honest with you, I learned that at a young age. I don't like being late. I don't like
mm,
silly. So, I don't want to be there and somebody outdo me.
right.
Uh, and then going to Cornerstone, man, we have workouts in the morning, and school starts at 8 o'clock. We get out at 7:49. We have to shower, get dressed, in a uniform, get breakfast because they watch you get breakfast, and
Mm,
class. If you're late, you have punishment. So I'm always aware of time, keeping time a chip on my shoulder. I'm always keeping it on
mm,
track. So
yeah.
not only knowing how much time you have, but what needs to get done. So I just in the morning I just think I think beforehand, usually the night before, what I got going on the next day, and I take it day by day. So in the morning I'll think what I got to do, how this is gonna play out, what I got to do for this class, this class, this class, this class, and then, get to school, handle my business, practice, get out of practice, eat, then go handle my business again. After school, we're watching film, we're working out, and then we got about, we get out around like 5:30. So, I got about, like 3 hours, 30 minutes, 4 hours maybe, before to get my proper amount of sleep. And I just, I right there. Sometimes I have to do it in the locker room. I'll do my homework if I have homework. Um, you know, um, then I just go home. Usually lift, eat, go to sleep, and repeat.
Time management is such a key at the next level, and for you to have learned that at such an early age, no doubt has brought you success at the high school level, but it will also propel you at the next level. That's the biggest bugaboo for guys when they go to that next level, is actually getting on that regimented schedule. Not every high school is the same. Not every program at the high school level really ingrains that part of it for whatever reason. I'm not here to take off on any school, but that is one of the things that really takes a player out at the college level, is just an inability to manage the time, the study hall. But you really have been on a college level type program since beginning high school, actually eighth grade. Can you tell me what a punishment is at Cornerstone if you are late? Let's
Uh,
say you took too long to eat that breakfast. What's the punishment for that?
Man, so we go through our school day, and man, it was a psychological thing too, man. They had you were late, you already knew what was gonna happen. So you go through all day thinking about it, and you see a coach, they'll remind you
Oh,
10.
they let it stew all day. They don't take care of it right away.
No, so yeah, you're late to class. They just and we had so at Cornerstone we had our football period last period. So
Uh,
um, you go to practice, do your stretches, and you go throughout practice. And after practice, we have a conditioning, and then you stay and you do a board. So they get you a little board, and it's like towel pushes but on turf across the field. 52, 54, and sometimes one or
you
two
know stuff.
push back, and whoo, it's brutal. And yeah, that's the punishment. Usually, how bad it is. If you're like 10 minutes late, you probably got two of them mugs. But if you're 2 minutes late, you probably just get one. But that was
Hmm.
one of the punishments. You know, uh, sometimes we just had to just we would just do one day. Somebody messed up in the weight room. We did I think like 116 up downs in a row right then and there.
Oh
So
my goodness.
yeah, so we'd up down. That's why it helped us keep each other accountable. Um, because if it was one person's mistake, then they would have a board. But if they did it again, now the whole team has extra running, and then they do it again. Now that like position group or team is doing the punishment with them. So
Certainly builds up the discipline. Okay, so let's get into the rugby thing. Again, 305 pounds. Don't expect to see that on a rugby field. I'm sure many of your opponents are not happy that you are running around at that size on a rugby pitch. How did you get into rugby? How long have you been playing it? And how serious are you with the rugby? Is it something you could play at the college level, or does it really just help you with your football career?
so you know rugby for me, I first my mom told me about it when I was like, man, maybe 7 around there, maybe 6 or 8. But I remember her. We were in the car and she was talking about it. And she was like, "Yeah, I don't want you to play rugby." And it was just one of those things. Whatever, just said it, and just let it go by. And it found out a little later, like maybe around like 14, heard about something. I was like, "Oh, I wonder why I played." And then it's like, well, we just, my parents just wanted me safe, because rugby is a very intense sport. If I
Mm,
get a big injury there, it could possibly mess me up for football. So,
right.
um, and so when it was getting hard at Cornerstone, I was getting burned out of football, and I was like, let me do something else, that is still around physicality, but it sounds fun. So I just went to practice, and I fell in love with it. I just started training and picked it up, and then I've only played rugby for 2 years, going on my third. But somebody my size is already attracted at the eye, and I'm just athletic, and all my hard work from football is what made me show out on the rugby pitch, and got an offer, and then got another offer. Same thing like football, one school and another, and then another.
Mhm.
So it all goes down, and then I'm getting calls from East Coast, West Coast, the South. So coaches want to text me, go on visits. So
Would you consider playing rugby at the college level?
yes, so as in right now, my decision is um, I'm focusing on football, and I've talked to a couple coaches because how scholarships work out. They're okay with that, or some schools I have a football and a rugby offer. Or it's just one or the other though. But I am considering rugby at the next level. It just comes down to how much I'm paying for school, because I don't want to put financial burden on me or my family.
Understand. How do the seasons run? Are they do they mesh, or are they completely separate? When is a rugby season?
So in high school, you know, rugby just helps you with just football, just with the physical aspect, and it makes you.
I'm saying, when do the seasons run? Like, does football and rugby run together, or like how does that work?
So in college, they are on the same timeline. I would say same season, sort of.
Okay.
Rugby starts literally 15s, 15 men on the field on each side, start around literally football, college football season. Um, and then high school rugby is started in around December. And then 15s ends around April, and then sevens, where the fast guys usually play, is around May to like beginning of August, and then there's tens, but that's like around summertime as well.
How would this work for you at the college level with the schools that have offered you for both sports?
So there's only like one school that would let me play both, and it's I'd be football, and then when football season is over, I'd switch to rugby. So I can't really do both at the same time. And another school, it was football or rugby. And they're both of those schools are very good at rugby, and they're good at football. So it's just one of the things that would just come down to the decision.
Just figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, just kind of figure it out. Well, that's good for you that they're good at both. So I got this question for you. Rank these for me in hardest when it comes to training and playing. Weightlifting at the level that you're at, which is at a international level, basically. Weightlifting, football, rugby.
So overall, most demanding, I would say, is probably powerlifting, just with the level that I'm on, because not only I incorporate a little bit of bodybuilding into it, but it's everything. My core has to be engaged on squat. My shoulders and back have to be engaged on bench press. And dear Lord, on the on the deadlift, man, I have to be perfect, because if not, one little thing can hurt me. So, and
Hmm.
a setback in powerlifting is sometimes career
Can
ending.
be devastating.
Yeah. So I would say powerlifting is the most demanding, just with the weight that I do, the focus that it takes, and
Hmm.
just the not only the mental side of it, but the physical side internally as well. I've popped multiple blood vessels multiple times.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
there's been times where I almost pass out, or it could be worse, just because the amount of shock that goes into my body. But that's just at the level that I'm at. When you're if you're like 200 pounds, maybe 185, and you squat 500 pounds, you feel probably worse than what I feel like with 735 pounds.
Mm, mm.
It's like that body to mass ratio. Um, it's a lot. It's demanding. You have to be perfect, because if not, you're gonna get hurt.
Biggest accomplishment in powerlifting for you? When was that time you finished a lift and you were like, heck yeah, I did that?
Probably at a state this year. Um, I've won regional and state championships and world and national championships, but I've competed against my best friend before, and uh, beating him, it was hard, but it felt good. And then lifting with my dad, but this one in particular meet, man, they didn't give me my squat, and I should have got it. I should have benched more. I hate saying the woulda, shoulda, coulda, but
Mhm.
what it should have, and some other guy that lifted, Um, his stuff was a little questionable, and they gave it to him, and so I'm fighting for a medal. Like I'm never in a position where I have to fight for a medal. The only time I did that was freshman year, so I'm
Mm.
fighting for a medal right now, and I've never missed a deadlift up until this meet. So my first attempt, I get it, 600 pounds. Then I put 655 on to secure a medal, and it's happened to me in practice. I gripped the bar, and I just didn't think because I was focused on so many other things. It's where being perfect matters. Who knows? Just one little squeeze on the bar, could almost disqualify me because if you drop the bar on deadlift, you're disqualified. So
Sure.
I'm pulling, and I feel my hand like there's two blisters that are just purple. I'm just bleeding
Oh
inside
my goodness.
my hand, and it's about to rip off. And I know if I let go, I'm gonna get disqualified. So I put it down. Well, about 10 minutes later, I think, and I'm like, man, I just gotta. I did. Yeah, when I fixed it at practice, was I just had to grip it as hard as I could. So I just put all my effort and grabbed the
Mm.
bar, making sure my grip was there, and then I just pulled it, locked it out. They said down. I put it down. I knew I got it, and sure enough, I saw the white lights, and I know it made my father and my dad, because my coach is well proud. I know it made him proud because you know I don't fail at that, and I just failed prior, so
Right.
took adversity to overcome, and I knew that I secured a medal, and I was the only one to do it from my school. So it made me feel like it made me feel really well.
Good. Good. Well, I mean, that's a hell of a story right there. I mean, that's like the fisherman that's trying to drag a marlin in and it spends hours doing it. It has that type of feel to it. Keegan Garcia, 2025, gridiron stud offensive lineman from East Central High School in San Antonio, Texas, joins us. Talk to me about nutrition. Is that a big deal? Do you kind of eat what you want? I'm not saying, just sloppy, but how important is the nutrition for you as a power lifter?
So going into the nutrition side, like I said, I do a little bit of bodybuilding and stuff like that. So I'm counting my macros, and I just started my cut today, but just for me to maintain during season. Um,
When you say cut, what do you mean for those out there that wouldn't know?
so cut is dropping like body fat and leaning up. Um, we're about next week we start morning practice, and I want to be where I have less body fat. So at the end of the season, I'm moving faster than these guys, a lot faster than them, making them look. I embarrass them a lot more than what I can
Mm,
already. So I wanna really take that next step where I'm moving faster in week 10 when these guys are all banged up and hurt. So
sure.
the nutrition side is, man, I track how many grams of protein I need to eat, how many carbs I need to have. Carbs go to sugars. You use them for energy, so I'm making sure I'm not storing fat. And my freshman eighth grade going to freshman year, I dropped quite a quite a pounds of fat, um, and that's really what made me faster. And I had a personal coach, so
Mm,
nutrition, man, it's if not one of the most, it's probably could be the most important besides recovery, because
yeah.
each training you have to train. And, you're not going to recover if you're not training. So
Right.
on top of recovery, that is also meaning nutrition, because recovery you have to put things in your body to be able to heal. So and I track my protein, my carbs, stuff like that. So like for breakfast, um, chug a protein shake. I usually have a couple eggs, and probably banana, potassium for later in the day, and then I drink a couple Gatorlights and stuff like that, electrolytes to help me keep going, so I don't, God forbid something bad happen. And then lunch hits.
How much protein are you taking in a day?
So on a bulk, I usually do around 2 grams per pound at least. So if I'm just starting a bulk, I'm around 600 grams of protein. But it also takes a lot
Good
of work,
Lord.
because if I'm just eating that much without working out, it's just going to my waste. You know what I mean? It's not being used, and then I'm just storing fat. So
Right.
you actually, when you're bulking, it's more intense, more strength going into it. So yeah, I'm around 600 grams of protein. Then when I'm maintaining, about 1.5 grams, maybe one. Um, but I usually try to do right now, like I'm doing like a pound. 1 pound is 1 gram. So
Mm.
trying to track that way. When I'm cutting, I'm doing like three meals. Bulking usually 4 to 5. So it's like I said earlier, little things, everything matters.
Keegan, you cook your own meals. Who's cooking? Who's delivering 600 grams of protein to you on a daily basis?
Well, my dad could account for it. That my mom's a great cook, and the food bill ain't cheap. Very expensive. Uh, my mom makes, man, she makes the best food. I couldn't even tell you what my favorite dish is because there's so many. But
Mm.
bulking, I usually have my mom's meals, and then whatever else that we bought, I usually cook one of the meals. So she cooks around 2 to 3, and I usually cook like maybe 1 to 2.
Mhm.
Cutting, usually some stuff is grab and go. Eggs, I do. But mostly my mom likes to make like chicken and stuff like that for me, anyways, and rice and stuff like that. So my mom is the one that she could be head chef somewhere. It is amazing.
Yeah, I would imagine. And who knows? Maybe that's down the road. For all these meals she's had to cook, I'm sure she's probably cooked more than the local restaurateur is serving up. Hey, going into your senior year, do you have some goals? You have some on the field goals. I know team goals is you want to get to the playoffs. You'd like to get to the last game of the season, but for you personally, Keegan, do you have any goals going into this senior year?
Yeah. So my goals this year is man, to finish out strong, to at least have 50 pancakes this year. Because I usually average around 100 pancakes a season. And it's usually 10. One of my games, my cornerstone, I had 24 pancakes one game. Um,
Wow.
but I I do know if we're up by a lot that you know I'm probably not going to be playing the second half. So
Sure.
I my biggest goals is necessarily staying healthy, being able to play every game to my best ability. To have them 50 pancakes, and for not for and then my individual team goal is to at least win the first round of playoffs, because in order to go to state championship you got to win the first one and the second and third. So
Right.
those are my individual goals, and um, probably my biggest one unspokenly is to honor the Lord during this season. Um,
Hmm.
it's like the quarterback for the Houston Texans. And, he's
Yes.
showing God's will. So I want
Yes.
to do that too.
Yeah. There's always room for God in all of this, and people need to keep that in mind. If you're a football player, a lot could go wrong on that football field, and football could bring you a lot of great things. So you should also always remain in prayer. That's a big part of it that a lot of people don't talk about. So I'm glad that you mentioned that. Keegan, man, just listening to all that you do, I really want to thank you for your time, because somehow I feel like I'm keeping you either away from a weight, a meal, a recovery, a naps, a rugby game. I feel like I'm keeping you away from something. So I'm so glad you took the time out to come on here and talk about your journey, your high school, your high school activities, because you're certainly a very busy guy. You're a model for how this thing should be done. You're like the ultimate gridiron stud. You've been doing this for the entirety of your high school career, and the way that you balance everything from your academics to your sport and your spiritual life. You are definitely an inspiration, and like I said, a really good model for high school football players out there on how this thing should be done. So, thank you very much for spending your time here on the Gridiron Stud Show.
Yes, sir. I really appreciate you having me and being able to, share my story, little pieces of it, and some of the things that I think is most important. There's so much to cover. There's so many different ways to do it. But I would say, the biggest takeaway from this is, you know, athletically, recovery, make sure you're eating right, practicing hard, and then school, you can't play if you're not passing. So handle your business there. Be better than the guy next to you. You know, and then honoring God in everything you do because He's the one that's going to give you the blessings. And then with all that, you just gotta after all that, is the recruiting process, and that's where
Mhm.
iron studs, and gridiron just general. I see these guys on there making a name for themselves. That's where they are separated from other people is they're getting that next level of recruiting, and you put all that together, and you'd be okay.
Absolutely. You summed it up well, Keegan. We're certainly going to be following your journey this 2024 season, all the way through it and into whatever you aspire to do at the next level. So we will be here for all of it. Obviously, keep us updated. You do a great job of that on the Gridiron Studs app anyway. So, again, I really appreciate you being on.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I can't wait to keep in touch and show what gridiron can do.
All right. Thanks, Keegan.
Yes, sir.
That's Keegan Garcia, 2025 offensive lineman from East Central High School in San Antonio.